Jared Ferguson. Hey there, Chris. As a supporter of freedom of expression, I'm a little concerned with the mass deplatforming of Alex Jones. Let me preface the following by stating I am not a fan of Alex Jones. I do not align with his politics or his wacky theories, but the manner in which he was removed from these platforms, the reason it was done, and the speed it was done give me cause for concern. Of course, the company has a right to refuse service. Interesting that American liberals happily apply this to massive tech companies and not a tiny cake shop. But doesn't it concern you for the precedent being established? That for vague, nebulous, and often unstated reasons, one's opinion can be deemed wrong and simply scrubbed from social media. You've talked often about how Scientology hijacks the genuine compassion of its members for self-serving purposes. I wonder if you can see how often the political left in America also does this. I watched Bill Maher's audience of self-identified liberals cheer for censorship and then watch as a room full of presumably educated adults had to be informed that free speech means the right to say something they might not like. This whole scenario saddens me as I see the self-proclaimed party of the people eroding liberty and then cheering about it. Alright, well, this is a huge topic and one I'm only really going to be able to give a summary version of my ideas about here in this Q&A show, but I thought I'd take the question up and address it because you asked. Okay, Alex Jones being removed from social media platforms is not a free speech issue. Okay, let's just get that clear right from the get-go. It's not because people, or at least it shouldn't have been, and I don't perceive that it was, because he was saying things people don't like, that he was removed from social media platforms. There is a thing about free speech. It has consequences. And when a person, a content creator, and this is something that I've had to give an awful lot of thought to as a YouTube content creator, when somebody who is a content creator incites violence, puts out messages that encourage, that ask for people to go take action. When you put out statements that are lies, that are provably lies, that really have absolutely no basis in fact whatsoever, such as saying that the children who were massacred at Sandy Hook were crisis actors, and that the parents of those dead children are crisis actors, that all of it was fake, none of it actually happened, and these people were somehow, I don't know, paid off or something, because one assumes if you have crisis actors that you have somebody who's hired the crisis actors. When you frame a tragedy in those terms, and then watch with apparent glee as your followers and the people who believe the nonsense that you spew, when you watch those people go and stalk and harass those parents to the point that they can't even go visit the gravesite of their own children for fear of being yelled at, pushed around, physically threatened. I mean, come on, man. And then the worst part is that Alex Jones, as the content creator, is actually presented with legal papers saying, dude, you really need to stop this. What you're doing is actually having an impact, an extremely harmful impact, on innocent people who are not crisis actors, who have lost their children. And he doubles down. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't tell his followers or listeners, hey, you know what? I got that one wrong. I shouldn't have said that. You know, leave those people alone. The whole crisis actor thing, you know, maybe in the moment I got a little carried away. You know, I shouldn't have said that. He never issued any such statement, not that I know of. Instead, he doubled and tripled down on it. He went on to even crazier conspiracy theories with the deep state and QAnon and, you know, this kind of nonsense. And he ties it all together into some insane worldview. And it's not the insanity of his ideas that are the problem, though. Alex Jones has been doing this crap for years. This has been his shtick, and he's made millions of dollars doing it. The problem is everything else I just told you about. Having these people in the real world take his crazy ideas and act on them. And when you are a content creator, you know, I have said many times, let me just say this, okay? I have had to make it clear a number of times, and even put it in writing, I believe, in my moderation policy, that I am not okay with advocating any level of violence against Scientology or Scientologists, or against any of these destructive cults that I talk about. And when I see comments, and I police my comments on my channel I watch them closely every day. And if I see advocacy for violence, if I see people saying, somebody should take David Miscavige out back and kick his ass, I'd like to see that guy get disconnected from life, and this kind of thing, I erase those comments. You don't see them whenever I can, whenever I catch them. And I've made it very clear that I do not condone, endorse, or in any way suggest that anyone go out and take any violent action against Scientologists. Now, I do that for a number of reasons. One, because it's absolutely useless to do something like that. It's only going to make things worse. Two, I don't want anyone thinking that that's what I'm advocating or that that's what I'm encouraging. And three, of course, I would not want to be held liable for anybody going out and doing something like that. And I know it's already pretty much law that I wouldn't be held liable, but I really have a very principled position about violence and stalking and harassment and all the rest of it. And if I'm going to sit here and say it's not okay for Scientology to be doing those kinds of things to its critics, then I certainly don't want any of you guys going out there and doing that to Scientologists. So when I see another content creator, a la Alex Jones, encouraging and inciting this kind of behavior, not taking any responsibility for it, and in fact, like I said, double or even tripling down on it, this is now a person whose speech is being used in a completely unacceptable manner. The consequences of his speech are unacceptable, and therefore he needs to be stopped. Now, that's not the same thing as I disagree with what he's saying, and I hope I'm making it crystal clear why it's not the same. So, we have a principle here in the United States that we talk about with free speech, that the analogy that everybody goes to, which tends to make sense and gets people to see how, speech can be harmful, is when you talk about fire in a crowded theater, right? And to me, this is equating, when people start talking about free speech in regards to Alex Jones, I start thinking, well, you're making the case that anybody can stand up in a theater and start yelling fire and pointing and screaming and inciting a riot, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I go, no, there's everything wrong with that. So I never, ever called for example, on my part, I never called for Alex Jones to be deplatformed until his speech had real-world consequences like that. I ragged on Alex Jones, and will continue to do so up one side and down the other, for his stupidity and for the fact that he lies and for the fact that, his gullible believers swallow most of his nonsense. I don't agree with any of that, but I never thought just because he was doing that, somebody should take his platform away from him. But when he crossed those lines, I went, it was very justified that they do that. Now, here's another thing that I brought up just the other night, actually, in a podcast that I was on, not on this channel, but on somebody else's podcast. And that is that what I don't think anybody's particularly looking at here, and this is just conjecture on my part, of course, but I think it's good conjecture, is Facebook, YouTube, and these other, Instagram, these other platforms, Twitter, which is not deplatformed Alex Jones as far as I know, but the other platforms did. These guys are multi-million, billion-dollar companies. Their exposure, their legal liability and exposure for giving Alex Jones a platform to carry out these actions opens them up to lawsuits. Just like they're going after Alex Jones, they could go after these platforms, and maybe they should. So I think that the reason why these companies acted in the way that they did was for financial liability purposes, not because they had the CEO or the board of directors of Facebook or Instagram have some big issue with what Alex Jones is saying, and therefore they're going to deplatform him. I don't think that's what actually happened. Now, if I'm wrong, you can link me to whatever statements these people have said as to, why they did it that might indicate that it was, for some other reason than what I'm saying. But I think it had to do with money. Because if you want to know what drives companies to move and motivates them to act, it's money. It's losing money, or gaining money. And in this case, I think they were looking at the liability factor there and going, yeah, we better get, unplugged from this guy. And I think that's why they did that, more so than because, of free speech issues. So the private company thing, I just want to address that because it might, I don't particularly perceive this as hypocrisy. If you're a store and you sell goods and services to the public, and somebody comes into your store and you say, well, I'm not going to serve you because you're a homosexual or you're gay or you're bi or whatever, now you're infringing on somebody's civil rights. I mean, so yeah, you have a right to believe whatever you want, but if you're imposing, your rights end when when you're infringing on somebody else's rights. Removing somebody from a social media platform does not in any way, shape, or form remove their right to speak. Facebook doesn't grant people the right to speak. The government does. And the government in no way, shape, or form impinged on Alex Jones's right to speak. He has every right to go out onto any street corner he wants to, or public venue or place that will cater to him or give him a platform, and say whatever he wants. His right to speech was not touched in any way by this. When a LGBTQ member a member of that community goes into a store and is told, I'm not selling you something because of who you are, now we have a civil rights issue. That's a different thing. And I really, it's not a free speech issue, certainly. And it's not a freedom of religion issue either. The store owner can go practice their religion in any way they want. But again, their rights end when they are impinging on or halting or ceasing the rights of others. So, it's kind of a whole different situation there that you're kind of mushing together. And I really don't think that's a very good idea. So, giving Alex Jones's right to speak has not been taken away. Social media platforms are private companies. They have terms of service. They can enforce those terms of service whenever they want, according to the words of the terms of service that people agree to. And if somebody starts spewing a bunch of violence inciting language, then they probably should be pulled. And that's according to the company's rules and regulations, and that's the sign up, that's the contract you sign when you go on board those social media platforms. Just the right to speak is what I'm doing right now. I'm speaking. I can do this in a public venue in any place I want, and no government official can come and stop me from doing that unless I'm violating other people's rights. Whether some private company wants to give me a bullhorn to reach lots and lots of people at once is up to that company. And that's not a matter of I guess you could call it censorship, but it's not a matter of taking away my right to free speech. So that's how I see those things, and I think that's how most people see them based on a lot of the tweets and comments and social media stuff I've seen. So that's what I have to say about that.